We're talking healthcare today with Oconee Regional Health System CEO and President Gene Aycock on GC Conversations. Hello and welcome to GC Conversations, a show where each week we bring in folks from the community, staff, faculty, alumni, all things Baldwin County and Georgia College. I'm your host, Wendell Staten, and today we're joined by Gene Aycock, the CEO and President of Oconee Regional Health Systems, or Healthcare Systems. Did I say that right?
It's Oconee Regional Health Systems.
Okay, all right. I get that mixed up. I told you I'd have trouble with that.
That's all right. That's all right.
So anyway, Gene, thanks for joining us today and looking forward to visiting.
Thank you for having me. I'm a pleasure to be here.
Well, good, good. Well, I always start the first segment off, which people don't like, but I say, tell me about yourself, okay?
Yeah, that's not always easy to talk about ourselves. We like to talk about what we do in our organizations. But
first of all, where are you from?
I am originally from Texas.
Okay.
My home in terms of family is Tyler, Texas in East Texas.
Okay.
And it's actually the same latitude as Milledgeville is. So when I first came here to interview, came down 441 and the azaleas were blooming in the dogwoods, and it's just like East Texas. So it felt like home from the very beginning.
Well, very interesting. In fact, Texas, when I think of Texas, Texas is so large. I believe it's the largest landmass state, or Alaska.
Alaska is,
okay.
Yeah.
It's one of the. It's close. Going back to my geography here, but I never know East Texas, West Texas, where Dallas is at, where Arlington is at, and all that kind of stuff. So, but
Tyler is in between Dallas and Shreveport, Louisiana, so it's on the very east side of the state.
Okay. So a drive from Milledgeville to there is about what?
Oh, it's about 12, 13 hours.
Oh, okay.
But you just go, north on 441 and hang a left on I-20 and drive till you get there. So it's not hard to find, but it's a ways.
So when you grew up there, you educated there in Texas as well?
Educated in Texas. I went to the University of Texas at Arlington in the Metroplex area, in the Dallas area.
Okay.
And went back to Tyler after we graduated from college and started out in public accounting. My background is in accounting. I have a bachelor's in accounting and worked in public accounting for 5 years. And the local healthcare system there, which is quite large, there were some friends of mine that had gone to work there and invited me to come over as an accountant and work at the hospital there. And during the 9 years that I spent there, we went from being a 3-hospital system to 15.
Wow.
So as the system grew and my job grew, I ended up being the corporate controller for that 15-hospital system.
Okay.
And my mentor there said, you need to be a CFO, you need to be a financial officer. And he encouraged me to go to a little town in southeast Kansas, Coffeyville, Kansas. And I was the CFO there for almost 5 years before coming out here in 2002 to be the CFO at the health system here. Okay,
so you've been here almost 10 years now.
Almost 10 years.
And so essentially you've had Texas, Kansas, and Georgia.
Right,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And what, you were an accounting major, I'm assuming, back in college?
Absolutely.
So at what point in those accounting classes did you go, you know what, I'm going to end up being a CEO of a hospital? Did they talk about that?
Never. This was not on my career path. It wasn't even 5 years ago when I became the CEO of the health system. So, you have evolution in any organization, and as our organization was evolving back in the late 2006, I was asked to step into an interim role, and I know the college is experiencing that right now when you have a change in leadership. And I told the board I would happily serve, but that they had to promise me I could go back to my numbers and my financial thing when they found the right person. And as the months evolved and the interviewing went on and the process, I found that I really did enjoy it, did have maybe a little bit of talent for it, and knew, I think if you know the numbers, you know the organization well enough to be able to get in. There were a lot of things I felt like we needed to do, and so just got into it. And I threw my hat in the ring and went through the entire process just like the rest of the candidates did. And there were, from all over the country, there were people that wanted the job. So I felt very fortunate that the board had trust and faith in me. And so I've enjoyed it in terms of my role there. Healthcare is becoming a more and more challenging and complicated industry and job, and we're going through a lot of evolution right now.
Well, I'm glad you used the term revolving as in a career, and I want to really kind of shift gears now to talk about how healthcare has evolved.
Right.
And we were just talking off the air, and I'm 44. When I grew up as a kid, we had a county hospital and a private hospital, and I don't know which one I think I went to both of them, and I'm not sure why. Okay, and then then you had a local doctor's office who you kind of grew up with, and I basically saw him from the time I was born until I went off to college. And but things have really changed. It's really probably not like that anymore. And the healthcare system seems to be the norm now. And I'll go back to and I don't know, I want you to kind of just talk about this nationwide, this trend of when the systems came into place. I go back to my hometown where they had those two, and I'm going to say probably 15 to 20 years ago, those both literally got torn down, and they built a brand new regional medical center. Talk about that?
Well, I think that's common. You see that, rural areas, you have it maybe to a lesser degree than you might in the more urban areas.
Right.
Part of that has been the evolution of how care is delivered to the patient. We don't as often anymore see one physician throughout our phases of our lives, although it's very important to have a primary care physician that knows you inside and out, knows all your history and the issues that you may or may not have had. So that's important. But part of this came out of probably regulatory, state law, because you could organize as a system. You could do more things. Sometimes states limited health care and hospitals to a particular county. Well, if you became a system, then you could work within other counties, a little bit broader range. And so I think that it's probably been driven by the way we deliver care, and it needs to be more integrated so that the flow for the patient is much easier from one phase to another, from the physician's office maybe to the testing, to the hospital if necessary, and then further into home health or long-term care. So, and we're going to see a further expansion of that under the Healthcare Reform Act. And so I think that's probably the process, the drivers behind why that has changed in a lot of communities.
Yeah, that makes sense, the way it's delivered. And throw technology into there now, and that brings a whole other wrinkle into it.
Oh, it absolutely does, and that's exploding right now in our industry, really. And so we, Baldwin County started out with 2 private hospitals that were 2 clinics that physicians ran, and they ended up working with the county leadership here to take both of those and create the Baldwin County Hospital. And we were a county hospital up until the 90s, the late 90s, I believe, was when we reorganized as a 501c3 organization that is self-perpetuating in terms of the board of directors. We still work with the county hospital authority. They're our landlord, but they have leased the operations and the development of the health system to the board of directors of Oconee Regional Health Systems. Now, that's a lot of boring things about how it's
very interesting.
created.
In fact, I want to I'm glad you talked about it. I want to pick up on the founding of the hospital and the expansion of the system when we come back on our break. So thank you very much.
Sounds good.
With Gene Aycock, I'm Wendell Staten. We'll be right back on GC Conversations.
From Maine to Maui, thousands of high school students across the country are getting in on the action by volunteering in their communities.
It's great helping others, and it feels good too. Are you in? Whoa!
Anyone can do it. All it takes is a little time. Are you in?
Action teams of high school students are joining Volunteers of America and Major League Baseball players to help train and inspire the next generation of volunteers.
It's easy to start an action team at your school, so you too can get in on the action.
Are you in? Get in on the action at actionteam.org.
Savings Man here with a story for you about 2 young spenders named Tommy and Sue. Their parents let them buy whatever they chose, like video games and designer clothes. As they grew older, they spent all their pay on fancy cars, houses, 2 lattes a day. They lived in the moment, never saving a dime. When they tried to retire, they'd run out of time. Working forever is Tom and Sue's fate, so choose to save now before it's too late. Visit our website to find out more, 'cause a happy ending's worth saving for.
Hello and welcome back to GC Conversations. I'm your host, Wendell Staten, along with Gene Aycock, CEO and President of Oconee Regional Healthcare Systems. And Gene, we kind of left off talking a little bit about the structure of the hospital. Let's kind of talk about the governing board and just the mechanics of how a hospital works. Because all I know is when I go in there, I get service. But it's not that easy. There's a lot of things going on behind there, okay?
Well, hospitals are very complex organizations, and as much as we'd like to simplify them, and we work at that all the time, we are regulated unbelievably in a lot of things that we have to do. We want to be sure that the care is obviously the top quality and good service, but there's a lot of record keeping, a lot of paperwork that goes on, and there's a big organization behind everything that's going on in that the direct patient care. We have a 13-member board of directors that govern both the health system and the hospital. Now let me explain. The health system is comprised of not only Oconee Regional Medical Center, but we also manage the hospital up in Monticello, Jasper Health Systems or Health Services, I believe. Up there's a critical access hospital. They're a 25-bed hospital. They have a nursing home and a primary care clinic where they have physicians. So we work with that community very closely as well. And in addition, we have other pieces to our organization. We have a foundation. We have a little for-profit subsidiary where there are a couple of companies that, because of IRS regulations and other things, have a for-profit designation versus not-for-profit that the hospital does. And so we have related companies like that are under the system umbrella. But we think most commonly of the flagship, which is the hospital itself.
And so there you have a board and again all the regulatory things for in healthcare and government, and then you have a group of doctors that perform services there as well. So talk to me about that. Again, I'm going back to me as a child. I would go see my doctor in his office, but then if I needed something a little bit more advanced, I'd go to the hospital and he would be there, or he or she would be there. How does this doctor consortium work? Explain that.
Well, our medical staff is independent. They are, most of them have offices out within the community, so obviously they're seeing patients. And that's the same model that most of us grew up with, was if you had to go to the hospital, your doctor was the one, I like to think of them sometimes as the quarterback, directing the care of the different testing and things that needed to be performed. That's evolved also in healthcare into most hospitals have what are called hospitalist programs now. And hospitalists are truly inpatient specialists. Technology, everything that we learn in medicine, every day, all of the research that's done has changed this industry so much that you have heart specialists, you have kidney, every function of the body. There is very much a specialty associated with it, and so inpatient medicine is no different than that. If you think about the number of medications that come out every year and understanding how that they affect the body, the technology, the equipment, all of those things, it's difficult for a physician that has an outpatient practice that's dealing with us individually to keep up with all of that. And it was, struggle for a lot of physicians just from a time standpoint. The hospital can suck a lot of time out of their day that they need to be seeing patients. So through issues like that, hospitalist programs developed, and they're truly a specialist. So when you go to the hospital now, more than likely, a hospitalist is going to be assigned to take care of you while you're there. Now, they're in communication with your primary care physician, and there's reports that go back to them so that as you transition back to their office practice, they know what has happened, just like if they had referred you to a cardiac specialist. They would get a report. And so that's not something that people always like. We like to see that face of our physician, but we have to be judicious in healthcare anymore with the practitioners that we have. And as I say, our medical staff is independent. They have their own leadership. There's a chief of staff. There are committees. They are very organized. They work closely with the hospital staff to work on various improvement and quality projects and policies and procedures and how patients are going to be cared for. They're key. Nothing happens in a hospital that a doctor doesn't write an order for. they are, you know, in charge of what happens. And so we work very closely with them. But so it's kind of a three-legged stool. You have the operations, the management of the hospital. We have the board of directors, who is ultimately responsible for everything that happens in that building, including credentialing the medical staff. We go through a long process to verify all of the credentials of our physicians and what they're capable of, what they're allowed to do, what they might not be allowed to do. You know, you wouldn't want someone that doesn't have training in cardiac care to do you know, surgery on a heart or anything like that. So that is also, it's a three-legged stool. And it's very important that it's a collaborative effort between each of these three groups to make sure that the care delivered is what's expected and needed for our patients.
Well, let's talk about another obviously key component of care delivery. We were talking about this off the air as well. And I said, Gene, are we still going to, is the nursing demand still out there? You said, absolutely, because it seems to me that over the, and I'm just, as I strategically think about it, obviously the baby boomers continue to age, we're going to need more health care, and, but there still is a demand for nurses.
Absolutely. Nursing and physicians are going to be in high demand, especially as healthcare reform expands the base of people that are going to have more access to health care. But nursing in particular, I think at Oconee Regional, we are so fortunate. I think it speaks a lot about our organization. We have nurses that have been there 30 and 40 years, that have spent their whole career there. And the average age of our nursing group is in the high 40s, I think. And so we've got to look at who's going to come along to fill those slots as people retire, and it's from a demand standpoint and then from an aging nursing staff across the country, the demand is definitely there. So we appreciate working with Georgia College and the nursing program here, and serving where we can as a clinical site and all of those things. And we want all of the graduates that want to come work for us, you know, we'd love to have them. And have a big nurse intern program, very robust. And so we've got great experienced nurses that can teach these younger people that are coming out of school now a lot about healthcare and nursing in particular.
Well, we're up against another break, and we'll come back for our last segment and talk a little bit more about healthcare with Gene Aycock. I'm Wendell Staten. Thanks for joining us on GC Conversations. Be right back.
This was a scary moment for Elliott Sadler and everyone at Richard Petty Motorsports. Thankfully, the folks at NASCAR have taken every precaution to ensure the safety of our drivers. And I hope you do the same thing when you get in your car. The Department of Transportation says distracted drivers are 4 times more likely to be in a serious accident. Buckle up, watch the road, and please do not text and drive. It could be the last text you ever sent. This message is brought to you by the U.S. Air Force.
As we recognize the service of America's men and women in uniform, let's also honor the families who sacrifice so much every day. As the service member serves, so does the family. Do you really want to honor a veteran? Look for ways to support their families and thank them for their sacrifices. Go to legion.org/honor-veterans to find out how you can help.
Hello and welcome back to GC Conversations. Thanks for joining us for our last segment with Gene Aycock, the CEO and President of Oconee Regional Health Systems. And Gene, let's talk a little bit about having our health system here, and particularly us in Baldwin County, with again with the flagship facility here. Just we were talking off the air about the tagline that your nurses use. Talk about that, because I think this speaks volumes to the care you're providing.
Well, I think it is very important. I think that sometimes in healthcare we look around and say, well, bigger is better. I don't think that's always the case. I think it's very important. Our nurses believe that they are friends and family taking care of friends and family. And there's very much a very warm, personal touch. I think that when you know somebody or you live in the community where that they do, the care is very personal. And sometimes larger organizations can be impersonal, and just by size, not by intent, certainly. And so I think that that's something that I would encourage this community. We're not Baldwin County Hospital anymore, and they were a great organization. But again, healthcare has evolved, and our attention to the compassionate part of care is very important at Oconee Regional. and again, that individualized attention. I think that, you know, when you don't feel well and things aren't going well and you have to be in a hospital, and anymore, we do so much as outpatients that when you have to be an inpatient, you're pretty sick.
Yeah.
I think having that extra little touch is very important, and we have such a qualified staff. We have physicians that could work anywhere in the world, and they choose to be here because they love the area, they love the patients, you know, the Milledgeville itself, and so that they're not settling for this.
Correct.
They're choosing this, and I think that that's an important distinction, I think, to make, that we're very lucky.
I agree, and again, the friends caring for friends and family, and I think that's just this whole community in general. You know, we see your hospital staff out in the community and visible at different organizations, and this board and that board and this committee, and so I think everybody's here because they want to be here, and let's make this place the best we can. And I think that's obviously comes through loud and clear with your service.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, even up to our board. I mean, these are volunteers. These people are not paid. The hours, the complexity, again, about healthcare that they learn and they devote to the hospital. Our physicians do so much for us and for people in this community that that's not very always recognized, I believe, because again, a lot of things are behind the scenes.
Sure.
That's seamless to the patient.
That's right.
They don't know, and they shouldn't.
That's right.
But you know, our quality is improving constantly, and we stack up with many of our what we might consider competitors around here, and in fact outperform them in many ways. We've won national quality awards, and you can't buy those things. They happen because it's the data is out there. And so while we don't do some of the very complex things to do with cardiac care or neurosurgery and those kinds of things, we cover everything else, and our staff just does an exceptional job with it. We are constantly looking to improve. We're not perfect, nobody is, but we want to listen to our patients, we want to resolve issues when they occur, but I get far more great letters about care and naming our nurses and our physicians than I do the other way around, which is the way we want it to be, absolutely.
Well, I know recently I was visiting a friend in the maternity area, and well, I felt like I was in a hotel room up there. So let's talk about the quality of your facility in general. Got a beautiful bed tower there.
We do, and that's about half of our care. We need another tower, and we would love to. You know, it's getting harder and harder to make any kind of a profit in healthcare. And let me explain that a little bit, Wendell.
Sure, please.
Because we are a 501c3 and we are self-governed, any profit that is made goes right back into the facility. We don't have shareholders. There's nobody that benefits from that, and so we just invest it all back in. And so we need to eventually build another tower, and but we've tried to and spent a lot of money to upkeep the Cobb Tower, the original buildings, where some of our patient care is going on, because you know, patient expectations evolve over time. We want it to feel more like a hotel than a hospital. We don't, you know, like the fact that we're ill and having to be there. And so that is very important, the comfort of our patients. And we always have that in mind and have to balance that against all the appropriate fiduciary responsibility of the organization. Let's say our staff is very cognizant of that. They do a great job being as efficient as they can be and frugal with our money. And yet always focused on the patient care. As I tell them, if you make the right decision for the patient, you've made the right decision.
That's right.
And so that's our focus always, is the patient.
Well, let's talk a little bit now about the economic impact that the Oconee Regional has here in our community. And first of all, how many employees do we have over there, approximately?
Well, on the payroll, we approach about 700, but those are not all full-time. Obviously, we have a lot of part-time folks. We have full-time equivalents is how that it's calculated in healthcare, and run about 575 on average full-time equivalents. People that have to be there. We're 24/7, 365 days. We never close.
That's right.
Everybody else got a holiday last week, but you know, our staff was still there.
That's right.
And you know, we want to be there just in case, obviously from an emergency standpoint. But you know, we need the community to support us all the time and choose to have things that you know, if it's procedures or tests or things that we can do here, so we can be here just in case. And so we do. We have a big economic impact on this area. The Georgia Hospital Association, through the Georgia State Chamber of Commerce helps evaluate that for every community.
Right.
And the last one that I saw, after everything is said and done, is about $160 million a year impact on this
Right.
community through jobs and wages and things we buy and all of those things.
Yeah.
So it's a considerable impact, and it's something employers look at when
Absolutely.
they're coming to a region. And we're important to Baldwin County, but because we are a little more regional, we have patients from 7 counties that access us. And sometimes from the school, we hate
Right.
that, and they're even from further out,
Sure.
the students that might be here. So a lot of this part of Central Georgia relies on this hospital. We're the largest one, in between Macon and, Augusta and,
Right.
and kind of in that area. So we play an important role.
Absolutely. And well, I appreciate you coming by today. Had a great time.
Thank you for having me. I
Learning-
love talking
yeah.
about the hospital.
Yeah,
I really
well, and
do.
we're glad you're here. We're glad the hospital's here.
Well,
So
thank you, and we appreciate the
Thank
school
you.
and all that's going on over here, too.
absolutely. Well, for Gene Aycock, I'm Wendell Staten. Thanks so much for joining us today on GC Conversations.